Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, Diego Lopes and Jean Silva take a bow. You two had the best main event fight of the weekend. Terence Crawford, you a bad man as well, 42-0 in the sweet science. And we'll tackle some of the latest news nuggets, as well as take a couple questions from the chat. So start bringing them now, and I'll start accumulating them, and we'll hit them at the end. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. And look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's here in Las Vegas with me. Danny Segura, he's out in Miami, the 305. Mike Bond's back. He's in Toronto. Congrats, Mike, as well, if I haven't told you that officially on an SBC on getting married, and also nominated, man, for one of the best journalists in the game. Goes is going to double on the ones and twos. Folks, hit that like button. Let's get this thing started. All right. Massive boxing match took place in Las Vegas this past weekend. 71,000 in that stadium and change. It's called the Legion Stadium where the Raiders play. We got to start with this. It was massive, folks. We covered it MMA Junkie because a lot of MMA bled over into this massive boxing match, including Dana White. Of course, he was the top dog there, the promoter. So Crawford versus Canelo went down. Terence Crawford defeated Canelo Alvarez via unanimous decision. He's now the 168-pound champion. That's the super middleweight in boxing. I want to get a reaction from the fellas. Goes, you grew up with the sweet science. You go first.
Look, man, I was really jazzed for this fight, but I'll be honest, being a big boxing fan, this was underwhelming. I mean, I think both guys could have done more. The majority of the blame, I feel, falls on Canelo Alvarez. I mean, Crawford's the guy that took the bigger risk, right? He was going up in weight. He probably could have done a little bit more, but I understand where he's coming from. You know, like everybody had an idea of how he was going to fight that fight. And you have to believe that he was going to try and go out there and outpoint Canelo, frustrate Canelo. It's what a lot of boxers have done. But even halfway through the fight, you had a feeling that he was just too quick for him. He was always one step ahead. And I'm not saying he could have knocked Canelo out, but he probably could have put his foot on the gas a little bit more. And when it comes to Canelo, he has so much on his shoulders, right? You know, it's Mexican independence. So many fans in there wanted him to win. And he's constantly being compared to somebody like Julio Cesar Chavez. You know, is he one of the better Mexican fighters? I was a little disappointed in his actions that night. I feel like he could have done a little bit more, and I think he could have taken more risks. I think it was a bad game plan. He fought very safe. And when you're fighting a guy who's going out there to outpoint you, giving him a head start is the worst thing you can do, because now you're giving him that cushion in the later rounds. And Canelo didn't adapt to anything. And it's kind of the criticism that you could give him in some of the other fights that he's lost. He just doesn't really have a plan B, and he doesn't take very many risks. So to me, I felt like given how big the magnitude of the event, the main event didn't really hold up to that.
Goes, did it almost feel like that Super Bowl with the Patriots and the Rams a few years ago? Wasn't it like 10-6, 10-3? Just the bar was set high, right? And the crowd came out, but it just fell flat. I think it falls on both fighters, like you said, kind of like 75% Canelo Alvarez, 25% Bud Crawford, something like that. Is that how you're looking at it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, me too, man. Danny Segura, what were your thoughts on this mega event in Las Vegas?
Honestly, I wasn't disappointed because that's what I expected. I didn't think we were going to see a knockout in this fight. I did think that Terence Crawford was probably going to win a decision, but wasn't very confident because boxing is boxing, and this is a mega fight. You never know. Maybe a draw or something weird happens in order to squeeze out a rematch. But the rifle guy won here, so that's good. But, yeah, I mean, the fight wasn't great, but this is more or less what we expect of some of these big boxing fights. Like when there's so much legacy on the line, neither guy wants to get knocked out and get turned into a meme. So just kind of playing it safe and kind of, you know, making it to a decision is already a decent outcome, considering that they're making so much money from these bouts. But yeah, all in all, it was a huge moment for combat sports, huge night for boxing. It just kind of felt special, right? Like you look at with Netflix involved as well, you look at the people that were there present. This was good for combat sports. I feel like and I say we because I know we're MMA, but we you know, we're under the combat sports umbrella. the world kind of stopped there for a second, right? And kind of tuned into fighting. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I would say it was a good night for boxing.
All right. How about you, Mike Bond? Were you blown away in any way by the main event, the event itself?
Not really. I mean, I was on coverage for the UFC event, so I didn't get to watch this production in full, as we kind of talked about before we went on air. Like, I really gave my full attention to it about halfway through the Callum Walsh fight in the co-main event, and then it was dragged out. I mean, from everything I heard leading up to that point, the pacing was pretty grueling. There was concerts. There was pretty much everything that Dana White has said he hates about boxing and certain combat sports events that you thought maybe you weren't going to get, and we end up getting anyways. And then, the icing on the cake of just it being drawn out was the main event not walking till like past 12:45 Eastern time, which was pretty rough for us out here on the East Coast. I mean, the press conference, I think, ended like 3 a.m. or later Eastern time. So yeah, it was a late night, a long night. If you're trying to use this Netflix platform to get in like maybe a non-boxing audience, people who don't turn this on the regular, that are maybe just sitting at home on Saturday watching Netflix, seeing all the promotion for it and say, hey, maybe I'll click into this. I don't know if you kept those people that late into the night. So I think that's a bit of an L there. But as far as the fight itself, I was fine with it. I mean, how can you not be blown away by Terence Crawford? He is absolutely sensational. He's been pleading and begging for an opportunity like this to showcase what he can do. Had to move up multiple weight classes in order to get a fight like this. And then when he got it, he definitely took advantage. No critique about that guy at all. Yeah, Canelo maybe could have done more at certain points, especially when it was pretty clear, at least in my eyes, that he was trailing and needed to do something significant to change the tone and the momentum of the fight. But again, as kind of Danny said there, I think the right man won. Thank God he did. I know the Rings AI scoring system had this fight as a draw. Thank God the 3 judges sitting ringside didn't see it that way too and had a little more sanity.
Mike, can you imagine? Because I think basically you want to be entertained, but a lot of us are fiending for violence. Can you imagine if we would have just grabbed the Noche UFC main event and put it on this? I think everyone walks out walking on clouds, because we had a definitive finish here, and it was bloody and gory.
Yeah, I mean, it was the UFC main event was everything you could ask for. One of the best fights of the year. And yeah, you go from that to this, it's just like, okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? It doesn't need to be all your cup of tea. You need to, I guess, put it in perspective about, obviously the significance and, weight behind each matchup. Those guys like to go in there and brawl at Noche UFC. This is more of a high level, technically refined boxing match. So you don't want to compare it too much, but yeah, watching those back to back, it's 2 different highs. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Oh, there was some pics of Dana White, videos of Dana White looking maybe frustrated, like, not too happy. I know he's putting out fires and stuff, but at some point you're next.
I mean, it goes into what I just said there, right? Like how he is so used to being in control of everything, right? Like we saw him there ringside. He's looking at a monitor. He's on his phone, but when it's a UFC event, he can grab the red phone. He can put on the headphones, tell the truck, tell the commentators, whatever he needs to say at that time. He clearly didn't have that level of control over that show. That's why point 1 on any broadcast deal they've done over the past 20 years has been, we're keeping our production with our people. Like that is something that clearly is very important to the UFC and Dana White. And I can't imagine this was his vision, to have a concert for each main event fighter walking out, to have all the downtime, the podcasts in between shows. I know that clip that he said a few years ago kind of went re-viral again with him just blasting the pacing of boxing events. This had it all. So I would have loved to hear his thoughts, but he did not come to the post-fight press conference. I assume that was for good reason.
But he was the promoter, right? So
he was, but how much of that is in name? How much of that was just being, the man in front? I can't imagine he sat down in the production meetings and this is all the things he wanted out of the event. I mean, this is everything he said he doesn't like about boxing. It was fascinating.
But you know what? Going in, like Danny, I guess, is kind of alluding to, is like he knew all that was going to happen. So like when they start playing mariachi music, he's not going, what's going on here? Like he knows all that's going to happen. To me, that face represented a guy who threw a massive party of sorts and all his friends and big celebrities showed up, and the party kind of sucked. I think that's what that looked like to me.
Sure.
Yeah, well, 4 decisions. All right, let's go. Let's start with that. It was 4 decisions, so it definitely dragged on. So that killed the pacing a little bit. And again, on the heels of Noche UFC, this was a perfect lead-in for him to hit 2 home runs, right? Because he got away with one at Noche UFC. On paper, that wasn't a 10. It wasn't even a 9. It was probably like a 7. And if you take off Silva and Lopez, I mean, a lot of people are tuning in. Shout out to San Antonio. 18 grand showed up. But then you have that epic main event, and so now it's like, let's go, boys. Let's do something here at Allegiant Stadium, off the heels of that event, and it dragged on. And Bealey and Martinez tried, Lester Martinez, they were throwing bombs for 10 straight rounds, but they couldn't knock each other out, so they didn't have that one moment, but yeah, I could tell, man, dude was definitely frustrated. He didn't seem happy like he should have been. Let's talk about the stadium aspect, which he's been bugged about. He says, I'm not into it. But now he's been at WWE's WrestleMania, and now he's been at this event, right? And he likes to break records. I think I saw 71,000 and change, Allegiant record, 47 million, I think, was the gate. I mean, dude, there's some records there for him to aim for. Danny, what do you think, man? Do you think he at least came away with, you know what? I don't like stadium shows, but I'm going to show them, because under the TKO umbrella, he hasn't had not even the 3rd biggest show of the year. Don't forget, WrestleMania went 2 nights.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know why he doesn't like stadium shows. It's not like he's the one sitting on the nosebleeds, like watching. And if people are willing to pay for that, the UFC loves money. So I don't know why, they would be so reluctant. My train of thought is that at this moment in time, there isn't anyone in the UFC right now that can fill a stadium, that can draw 60,000, 70,000 people. We had a very special fight, one of the best fights, or on paper, one of the biggest fights in boxing history, one of the top 5 biggest fights in boxing history. Maybe you could have done that with Brock Lesnar, maybe, Conor McGregor, though certainly Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey. But at this point in time, like, who would go out, unless you do like Ilia Topuria in his home country of Spain, in Madrid, unless you do something like that where it's very tailored to a market. I'm not sure. Name any champion, right? Tom Aspinall, name it, even maybe him in Europe, right? In the UK. But try to take any of those champions to Vegas, and I don't think you put 70,000 people in seats. So, yeah, I think that's part of it as well. And I would say, actually, that's probably the biggest sort of aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think to fill a stadium in North America, you would need like Ilya versus Makachev, Jones versus Aspinall, Harrison versus Nunez, and then like some other good fights. Like no one fight is doing that. You need probably one of the greatest cards ever assembled. So, and then we know we're not going to do that because they need to spread the wealth.
Exactly.
Which is what he's saying though. Which is what he did for UFC 300. 1 and 2. It's what he's saying for the White House card. He's saying the best card ever. Yeah. But I'm like, man, focus on this. You can have your White House card. Focus on that stadium and how grand those. I mean, the event looked beautiful.
Is it I wish I was there. Ever like UFC 300, or is it the best card ever like the Sphere? Because those were 2 very different things, right? The Sphere card had a great main event, but lacked a lot of depth throughout the undercards. So,
right.
Maybe it'll have to be with a Mexican or Irish fighter in the next year if something happens. Maybe the return of Brandon Moreno. Or
my prediction is I think Dana White's, when he's asked about this, is going to say the same thing that he always says. I don't like stadium shows. We did this for a certain circumstance, but like it's not in my plans for a UFC event. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm. They didn't suck, right? The ones that they did do.
No,
Mike, you went as a fan to GSP, and I think you covered one of the Australia ones.
I did. I didn't do Australia. I was at GSP versus Jake Shields as a fan, and that was a cool experience. But obviously, just being here in Canada, GSP, a different time. And then I also did Alexander Gustafsson versus Anthony Johnson, which was in a stadium in Sweden in the middle of the night, and that was good energy. But again, completely different time for our sport.
What was it, 50,000?
40, 47, for like something in the 40 range. But again, imagine a fight night selling 40,000 tickets now. That wasn't even a pay-per-view.
Yeah. That's gonna be a rough sell.
What did you guys think of him as a promoter in the boxing world goes? What'd you think? How he handled fight week? There was a different weigh-in from boxing, but what we're used to in the UFC?
Yeah, I thought he did well. I mean, a lot of people are going to want to crap on him because of the way the fight turned out. But you have to understand, in boxing, this does not happen very often. Like this matchup was not something that was on people's radar, and he made it happen. And so I think a couple good things that happened throughout the week was I liked Embedded. I like how that worked out. To me, he almost created a brand of sorts where if there's a big tennis match or something in another sports realm, you might say, I want to see an Embedded on that type of thing. So I think that was kind of cool that they did it that way. Uh, the lighting effects were amazing. The shots, the tunnel that they did, you think of Pride and you think of the big ramps and all that. He didn't replicate that, but in a way he did with what he did with the tunnel and the walkout. That's something that I hope maybe, I don't know how logistically that is difficult to build in other stadiums or arenas, but that'd be cool to keep going forward, because when you think about it, the characteristics that fighters had to themselves that was taken away in the Reebok era and Venom, you can kind of regain those a little bit doing that type of stuff. I thought that was really cool. The things that I didn't like, I mean, the pacing was a little off. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but it did kind of drag on. And I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here, because the national anthems probably would have dragged on another 15 minutes. But considering the fact that this is sort of built around Mexican Independence Day, to not hear the national anthem for either country was a little off, I think, when it comes to a boxing event. But for the most part, I think he did the best that he could.
Yeah, well, it was Turkey's show too, so I'm sure he had to concede a few things to him. And Big Turkey likes, he likes mega events. He wants to hit people from not just the sporting aspect, but the wow aspect.
Did it come across like that to you guys? I think you've probably been paid closer attention to like the biggest boxing matches in history than I have. Like, I think that's what we would always say, right? Like every UFC event, whether it's UFC 300 or Fight Night in Omaha, like generally looks the same in the broadcast they give us. And with boxing, it's always been like, it's such a spectacle, right? These big events, UFC can never match the spectacle of the biggest boxing shows. Did it feel like we got that still on Saturday, or did it feel
it was a
toned
spectacle.
down?
It was a spectacle for sure. It made me to have wanted to be there as a fan. I don't even care if I would have sat up, because come on, man, he's always pretending like the stadium, and come on, most of us at the arena do watch the screen up above as well. If we're being honest, if you're not in the first 3 rows at a UFC event, you look up a lot, so you almost don't want to be too close, because then your neck's strained, right? So sometimes when you're back, you catch a lot of those things. That's why he watches it that way too. You just want to be in there. You just want to be in the arena, And again, we're not telling them do every show that way. Just once a year. Once every 4 years is too much. Like, it's not the Olympics, right? But once a year, once every 2 years, just come on, man. Like, seriously, you can do this, and it would be pretty historic. But Danny's right. He's missing the pairing that can get him there, because it might be an egg on his forehead if he can only fill up 35,000, right? Especially here at home, he'd have to make sure he comes strong. All right, guys, let's bleed over some MMA into this. Ilia Topuria wants some of Crawford. Do we want some of that, Danny?
I don't personally, but maybe the world does. I don't know. It was funny. I was listening to Crawford doing a podcast with Full Send, like the Nelk Boys. And they asked him about the crossovers, if what he feels about them and stuff, like MMA and boxers going at it. And he was actually like pretty complimentary about it, in a way that I kind of felt like he was kind of opening the door for himself. And they even asked him, do you think it's ever going to happen again? Or, is it stupid of a MMA fighter fighting a boxer in boxing? And he's like, no, I don't think it's stupid at all. And yeah, totally, it can happen again. And then you fast forward, and then you get that interaction with Ilia Topuria, and pre-fight and then post-fight. I'm not saying that fight's going to happen, but obviously Ilia Topuria is interested, and I don't think Terence Crawford would say no as well if the opportunity is presented. I do feel like he sees a lot of money there. Should they make this big, right? So I don't want it. I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't think it's too crazy to think that maybe there's something there.
Damn. All right. What about you guys?
I have zero interest in it,
Me too.
but as I've said before, I feel like the new MMA star, their shelf life is going to be a little bit shorter, especially a guy like Ilia Topuria who's accomplished so much already in his career. So I wouldn't say a boxing match in the future is out of the realm of possibility. I think he probably would do something like that, but I don't even know if Crawford will be around then. Like there's even talks that this might be it for him. So who knows? But I don't think it'll be Crawford, but I do think Topuria at some point will take a fight. And it'll probably be one of them aging fighters, boxers, someone like that. I think would work.
What do you think, Mike? You into this at all?
No, not really. I want to see the boxing champions face top boxing contenders, and the UFC champion fight the top UFC contenders. I don't think that's too much to ask, but we know how this goes sometimes. The seeds are definitely being planted. Like, you can't deny that, whether Crawford says, he didn't know the walkout music was the same as Topuria or whatever, right? Like, there's little seeds there. Maybe that flourishes into something at some point. It would certainly be a boxing match, even though Terence Crawford, has wrestled in like high school or whatever. Like, he's maybe more equipped than anyone and has actually expressed an openness in the past to maybe doing something like that. But I don't think that's the direction it goes at this point in time. I'd have much more interest if that was the case. But yeah, maybe we get something far down the line, but it seems like these guys have bigger business. Again, in 2 years, if Crawford's retired and they come to him with a huge bag, like, he's obviously got a good relationship with Dana White and the UFC and Turkey Al Sheikh and everything. Maybe something happens when he's like retired and bored and they just offer him too big of a bag. But I don't see that being competitive at all, obviously. Probably goes without saying. So I don't know, man. It's I would not want to see Ilia Topuria's ascent derailed by this, much like what happened with Conor McGregor. It was never the same for him in MMA after the Floyd Mayweather fight. So yeah, like, give me the undefeated champion. Let's see what Ilia Topuria can do in this division with multiple available contenders. If he runs through everyone and gets to 20-0 or something, and it's just like scarce out there for huge fight options, and he's 4 or 5 times the star he is now, let's maybe revisit then.
Let's be honest too. If the money wasn't better in boxing, I don't think these guys would want to challenge themselves. I think they say that, but it's basically only because the money's there. I mean, I'll stand by that. And speaking of money came up a few times this week. Amber Dixon, formerly who used to cover boxing actually quite often, and now has been working for PBS. She had an interview with Dana White, and she was lauded for it because she, you could tell she did her homework. But it wasn't only that, folks. She actually has covered boxing before. She told Dana stuff like, we don't know what fighters get paid. UFC fighters traditionally don't get paid what boxing fighters do get paid. When she threw out the number 100 million, which is what the rumor for Canelo Alvarez is, because I think he's got a $400 million deal with Big Turkey. He said, well, Conor did make a 100 for his fight, which is the rumor, obviously, for the fight against Floyd Mayweather, where Floyd, I think, made 400 or 300 million himself. And then she corrected him and said, but it was in boxing. So he got hit there. He got hit a little bit at at one of the press conferences as well. Mike, your thoughts there? Did it look like his feathers were ruffled a bit there?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, also worth noting that that 100 million Conor allegedly got, I think he had to give 50% of that to the UFC brass. So it's more like 50 million or less he probably got for that, which obviously is extraordinary money by MMA standards. But yeah, that's also worth some context. It's good to see. I mean, credit to these boxing reporters and just the reporters in general who push when they can. We try to do what we can at some point, but like, Dana's answers when it comes to this stuff are so like pre-orchestrated at this point. He just rolls out the same hits. I mean, he was giving her answers that he gave us about UFC fighter pay in 2008. Like, the hits don't really change over time. They just get slightly altered, but you can push as much as you want. I mean, he's not going to suddenly just admit, yeah, we don't pay these fighters this much or this thing or the other thing. Like, he's obviously very entrenched in their standing, and he's going to defend the UFC as best they can. But yeah, anytime you can challenge him, and there was laneways this week, especially with everything going on with the Muhammad Ali Expansion Act and everything, like, these are important questions to be answered. But Dana White's been answering questions about fighter pay for 25 years at this point. So he's not suddenly going to give you a revelation, but I'd love to see him give Sean Zeffler, is that his name, the reporter, I believe, from the press conference on Thursday. Sean Z, we'll call him. I hope they do that one-on-one sit-down, but I don't know what the odds of that happening are.
Now, that was the fellow that was pressing on the Muhammad Ali Reform Act, I think is what or Revival Act is what Zuffa Boxing's trying to bring over. And so what they're saying, I think the main component there is they want to have their own belt and not have the sanctioning bodies. So they can control, obviously, the matchmaking. And the Muhammad Ali Reform Act in boxing applies to promoter and manager, can't be the same party. But what they're trying to stray from is having, them have the ability to belt their own fighters. And so he was asked about that as well, and he told Sean Z, we'll call him, hey, look, we'll do a one-on-one, but he didn't look too comfortable up there. Now, granted, I will side with Dana. Hey, we're here to promote a fight. I get it. Do you have questions for these guys? But at the same time, if you're not available to a lot of people,
it is a press conference open to the press.
Yeah,
whatever you want to whoever you want that's upstage. If you don't want to answer those questions, just put Max Kellerman on the dais for the whole time or something.
Right.
Yeah. I don't personally like that they would have their own belt system. I kind of like what boxing's done. I kind of like the money that is paid out to the guys that bring in. Look, that fight sucked, but it wouldn't have been 71,000 if Canelo and Terence Crawford weren't involved, right? We can't grab two other boxers and do that. So don't hurt their money, in any way. Whatever you're going to do, getting your hands in the boxing world is all I got to say about that. Any thoughts, fellas, on that one?
I think just go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's a difficult situation. I think it's something that fighters, it would not benefit them. These belts that they currently have in boxing, there's certain challenges that they have to take. They cannot avoid. And that equals a lot of big money for some fighters. And if you have a style that maybe they don't like, or if you just maybe don't put as many butts in seats, you might get passed up for that. And that doesn't relatively happen. There's some sort of ramification in boxing. You have to give up that belt if you're not going to defend it. I think fighters should keep an eye out for that type of stuff.
Yeah. And it's crazy that we haven't seen, at least from the boxing side, we haven't seen that much uproar from the boxers themselves. I guess to the ones that are close to retiring, and wrapping up their careers. But even then, I'm sure you don't want to see future boxers in the newer generations not be able to enjoy or take advantage of sort of the system that's built in for them to succeed and make all this money. There's a reason why you don't see a fighter making $100 million purse in MMA. And then there's also a reason, it's not a coincidence that, we don't see promoters like the UFC nearly as powerful as we do in boxing, right? The system itself just balances the sport out. And will that sometimes not give us the fights that we want? Sure. But that's what it comes down to. If you want to make the fight, then you got to pay up, right? We'll see if that comes through, but it will be terrible news for boxing.
Danny, you said uproar, right? But there was a little one, because when Max Kellerman was trying to put the UFC over, or Zuffa Boxing over, this is the new wave, this guy's done it, he was almost disparaging boxing a little, and Canelo stepped up. He goes, no, Max, he goes, boxing is boxing. He said boxing is still prestigious. It's doing well. Now, obviously, he's the guy that signed for $400 million. I get that. But Max is trying to almost paint this picture like this guy has made all the fights happen. I'm sorry, but in MMA, we've also not seen all the fights we've ever wanted. Maybe we missed some in boxing too, like Floyd and Manny at their peak, or any other ones that maybe I can't think of right now. But the same thing has happened in MMA too, and in the UFC. We missed out on a few there too. So it's not a bulletproof system that he has, and I don't know why Max was doing that. I mean, maybe because that's his paycheck, right? But I'm glad Canelo partially chucked him on that.
Definitely. Yeah. I guess just last thing before I move on from this, it'll be interesting to see just what happens now. I think the important questions Sean did ask Dana at that press conference were, what if all these moves you're attempting to make do not work out? The California State Athletic Commission had their meeting where it seemed like they kind of felt they needed to take a deeper dive into what the UFC and Zuffa and TKO are trying to do here. They go through this experience, like Dana White kind of reveals that they want Zuffa boxing to be like a pipeline for the ring shows, like a Contender Series-esque thing. That's not what we were told at the beginning when this was announced. It felt like it was going to try to be on par with all these other big boxing promoters. So I don't know what their plans are, if this is all going to go forward as it's been laid out. I don't know. I would just love the UFC and Dana White to focus on the UFC, because that's ultimately why we're here. And we're spending 30 minutes talking about boxing on an MMA show. I'd love for us to be talking about MMA the whole time and have the UFC's investment and direction, but that's clearly not the vision TKO has. We'll see if all this stuff and all these kind of hiccups and roadblocks and stuff maybe persuade their pursuit of this venture.
Well, let's pivot to MMA. I think now's a good time. The Noche UFC card, look, it was a drop off from last year's big show at the Sphere in terms of star power, and location. No disrespect to San Antonio. I mean, arena and how unique the Sphere was. The main event, though, was sick, guys. Let's get a reaction here. Danny, sorry, we'll go to you first on this one. Dude, Lopes and Silva was an awesome fight, man.
Best fight of the weekend. It was awesome. And it was everything that we expected. It was as advertised, right? Like, we knew this was going to be a car crash, and that's exactly what we got. It was an awesome, awesome fight. It's just such a bummer that it really got overshadowed by how big and how grand the boxing fight was, and rightfully so, right? Like, there was so much legacy on the line, but I do wish this fight would have gotten a bit more shine, because, as you said, GG, like, if you would have plugged this fight into that audience, like 70,000 people, man, that entire stadium would have gone crazy. Fantastic fight. Yeah, and we got a rivalry. Something tells me this is not the last time these two will be fighting. So yeah, fun stuff.
And no one's stock fell, goes. John Silva was putting it on Diego Lopes before Lopes threw that elbow. I wouldn't say he walked into it, but he kind of did. But he was on the verge of possibly stopping Lopes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to pivot back to boxing just for a moment. How many times did we talk about Hagler-Hearns and what that did for mixed martial, or for boxing? This was kind of a Hagler-Hearns type of fight that happened in mixed martial arts. I mean, it was a back and forth. It was a war. It had heat coming in. Both guys kind of trying to cement their place in that division. Dude, I'm with Danny. I want to see this again. Obviously, it probably can't happen right away, but I feel like it's going to happen eventually. And when it does, I really hope they make that one big, because those two delivered. They really did. At every point of that fight, they delivered.
Mike, two for you. Your reaction to this awesome main event at Noche UFC, and then we'll start getting into the title picture. Danny, did you want to say something before Mike gets going?
Yeah, I just want to say something. I do disagree, GG. I do think that John Silva's stock did fall, and I do think that it fell by a lot.
Why is that?
Well, just a few weeks ago, he could do no wrong. The fan base was just absolutely enamored by this guy, and they were just pushing him, and it just felt like the fighting nerds, and him specifically, could do no wrong, and he was just a fan favorite in the division. I feel like that's changed with a lot of his behavior during the fight week, him kind of pushing, or I don't know if he smacked Diego Lopes on the back of the head after the fight. Okay. From what I've seen online, and maybe my algorithm's different, and we got to be careful sometimes with that in terms of generalizing, because algorithms and social media can be so tailored to one's clicks or whatever they think is, but yeah, I saw a lot of hate after the fact on John Silva, and that this whole invincibility, or the guy could have been one fight, one win away from a title shot, right? I do feel like he lost a lot on Saturday.
Well, I guess I meant more on the performance side, because, like I said, he was on the verge of closing out Lopes. Now, him acting a fool, I get that. Mike, your thoughts on the fight, and then also chime in on this too, Mike, and then we'll get into the whole title picture.
Yeah, awesome fight. Both guys delivered. Diego definitely deserving of his double dip in the bonuses, performance of the night and fight of the night. Man, like, this could have been, at least John Silva showed something, right? Some resiliency. Like, if he had just got finished with the ground strikes and mount TKO in the first round, like, I think this looks even worse for him than everything Danny just said. But the fact that he got back to his feet, put it on Diego, had some moments, looked on the cusp of victory, and then surprise, surprise, the arguably most emotional fighter in the UFC gets too emotional in there, overcommits, and walks into a spinning elbow. So like great matchup. I said my matchmaker thing, like I'm still pretty high on John Silva. Give him anyone in this featherweight top 10, and I'm absolutely making it appointment viewing. He's extremely exciting. The strikes he throws in there, the risks he takes, just all great to see. I mean, from an entertainment perspective, all for that. Can't wait to see his next however many fights. So for that, I don't think his stock drops too much. But yeah, in terms of his trajectory in the division, I felt like the door was open. If he had won this fight against Diego, he probably would have got the next title shot. I think he would have skipped over Evloev and Lerone Murphy and stuff. I think the UFC was that high on him, but how quickly the narratives change, man. The fighting nerds were on the top of the world, a month and a half ago, and now they're the dirt on at the bottom of everyone's shoe. So that's a tough spot, but for Diego Lopes, God, what a win. You always kind of wonder how a guy's going to come back when they lose a title fight. Like he had such a great run leading up to that, all the momentum on his side. People thought he could beat an aging Volk. Doesn't go his way. That could have kind of broken his spirit a little bit, but clearly not the case. He comes back, has a huge performance, and he's right back in the mix now.
Would you endorse a rematch? I guess Volk hasn't fought anyone since Lopez, and it kind of would be nice to just get one body in there, and then if Lopez wants to wait that out, okay. But we do have bodies at 145.
Yeah, no, it's he's not the guy. He did a huge service for himself winning this fight the way he did, but you can't sell me on doing that immediate rematch for him. How many Volk fights do we have left? I want to see them against this different range of contenders. There's lots of guys in there who feel they deserve it. I mean, Lerone Murphy is making his case. Aljamain Sterling is making his case. Movsar Evloev is undefeated, 9-0 in the UFC. He's clearly up there. Yair Rodriguez even claimed he was promised a title shot if he took the Pitbull fight and won that. I do not think he is the front runner by any stretch, especially since he probably should have been the opponent in there instead of John Silva for Diego Lopes. So there's a lot of guys there, and I just don't think Diego's case is stronger than theirs, especially too if Volkanovski's wanting to fight December 6th at UFC 323, I believe it would be. I don't want to see that turnaround for Diego either. I don't want to see him fight again in 3 months after a fight like that. So give me the guy who's freshest and most available to me. That is Lerone Murphy.
Lerone Murphy from Mike Bond. For you, Danny Segura?
Lerone Murphy. Yep, that's the guy.
Okay. So both of you guys are saying no Movsar Evloev. But let's assume he's healthy. You're saying Lerone Murphy has passed him?
Look, go ahead.
No, he screwed himself by pulling out of the Pico fight. Yeah. If he had taken that and won, he didn't even have to get the spectacular spinning elbow that Lerone Murphy did. Just a win. Maybe not if it was a boring decision, but yeah, he can't be that after pulling out of that fight. It's just too tough right now. We know it's a what have you done for me lately. I would be shocked if he got that fight next.
Goes, you agree with these guys?
Yeah, that spinning elbow was the stamp that he put on all that. So I got Lerone Murphy leading that charge.
Okay. I think most deserving is Evloev, but man, I think you guys may have just convinced me. I mean, I don't know if he pulled out like like toe injury, like, hey, you could have toughed it out, or how legit it was. We haven't heard of him being booked with anything, but let's just say they go the Murphy route, because I see Aljo getting shipped to China and he's never been the favorite. We don't want to run them back, but I don't know what you do, because I don't think you want Lopez to collide with Evloev, even though they have in the past. So I always think of what the UFC is designing, and who they want to pit against who. But I'm in if it's Lerone Murphy, man. But congrats to Lopez. That was crazy. That was a crazy fight. And for Silva, guys, what do you want to do next with him?
Pico?
Pico?
Aaron Pico? I'd be or Arnold Allen. I'd be good. Anyone there, as I said, anyone in the top 10. We'll obviously have to see who gets the title shot and how they match up the contenders. But yeah, anyone who's lost these fights of late would be good. Pitbull would be awesome. John Silva and Pitbull. That'd be a lot of fun.
I know none of you three. We'll go through all three of you on this one. None of you three think the fighting nerds have been fraud checked, right? It's just a poor run over 2 weekends, Danny.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're also up a level, right? Like they've been fighting guys outside of the rankings and they're now stepping into title contention. And it is, unless you're like an extremely, extremely special team, it is completely normal and fine to lose these type of fights in the top. Now, if this continues where they're just unable to get over the hump and able to get a big signature win over a top 5 guy, and we get more of a pool, then I guess you could say maybe that they're limited, but they're definitely not fraud check. The fact that they're creating UFC fighters, and not only UFC fighters, but ranked UFC fighters, proves that they're a good quality MMA gym.
Goes.
Look, I think Silva just ran into a Tasmanian devil. If you look at all their losses, they all have their unique component to it. And in this one, I mean, not a lot of people could have beat Lopes that night. I mean, he was on point, and Silva gave him hell. So really, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button, but you definitely have to make an adjustment, maybe a reset button, whether that means bringing in new faces or taking the team on the road for a couple weeks, getting a couple new looks. Something does have to be adjusted, but the panic button, I don't think so.
Mike?
It's a tough one. I think what Lazy Bed says here in the comments is pretty on point, right? John Silva said Caio Braujo, and Mauricio Hufi shared a common thread in each of their losses. They ignored the game plan and the corner advice. So it'd be interesting to see like the coach's perspective, right? And hear what they have to say about the string of losses. If they, of course, they're going to take the blame and all that stuff, but for the fighters to kind of admit that is interesting. I don't think fraud checked, again, each has their own element to it. Like the Caio Braujo thing, I don't like him cutting weight and doing 2 weigh-ins in 3 weeks like that. You could read that was going to be a bad idea.
And the travel.
Well ahead of time. So I don't know what he was doing there. And then again, they all just have their own pieces. A lot of pressure now goes on Carlos Prates, right? From everything Danny said there, he does get the top 5 guy. He gets the former champion, arguably the biggest fight any of these guys have got so far, rankings wise and all that stuff. So we'll see what he does, how that goes for him. But to go, if he does lose, to go from being what they won, I think, team of the year at the MMA Awards last year or something like that. I don't know who we gave our team of the year for MMA Junkie to last year, but I'm sure they were in the discussion.
We gave it to Valle for Bilal Muhammad and Juliana Pena.
That was coach of the year, I believe. Okay. So yeah, again, it just goes to show how quickly things change. So I don't hit a team too hard. This happens quite often. You'll see 3 champions at one gym at once. You'll see teams like Fortis MMA go on incredible streaks and all these little things. And then it just takes a few losses and it all changes. So I'm not ready to write them off yet, but they claim, to be this intricate research team who does all the meticulous planning. These fights haven't necessarily shown that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, real quick.
They did win team of the year for MMA Junkie in 2024.
Okay. Real quick, guys, educate me here on fraud check. I think it's fucking cruel to almost say that to someone, right? But was Bo Nickel fraud checked? Is that an example of fraud check? Just because it happened so early, I'm not clowning on him losing to RDR. There's no shame in that. But is it when it's too soon and then you get clowned? Because these guys, fightingers, didn't get fraud checked. They're not frauds. They're great fighters, man. So what's an example of fraud check? Or is that just a sorry internet term then?
Sorry?
Is it just a sorry internet term used by trolls?
A bit, but I think there is some truth to it. I feel like there definitely can be scenarios where somebody did get fraud check. I don't think Bo Nickel got fraud check, but I think if we're talking about sort of the most recent examples, I think he's probably the closest to it, just because a lot of people were saying, he's like Hamza, like he's bound to be a future champion, this and that. And he fell very, very short of those expectations against RDR. And even then, even before that, you can kind of see signs that maybe he's not as, as promising as people are making him out to be. But even then, I wouldn't say he's fraud check. I'm trying to think of like a very good example of, perfect example. In RIP Kimbo Slice. Dada, was it 5,000 or 3,000?
5,000.
He got fraud check. Apparently, he was like undefeated in the streets, like 300-0, like massive, heavy. Bro, he didn't know shit about fighting when it came down to it. That's probably the prime example of fraud check. Big talk, tough guy, but he was not tough. He was not a good athlete. He couldn't fight properly. That's probably a good. All
right. If the chat can come up with a fraud check example, I'll read it off at the end.
I think what it comes down to is when a promotion probably gives you an easier route to something. But when the fighter kind of jumps in as well and they're as vocal, yeah, I do deserve this. I think that's when you hit them with the fraud check. But
Yeah.
Bo Nickel plenty of times said, listen, I'm confident in my skills, but I know that there's work to do. I don't think that he ever really overdid it. And I think that's when you get fraud checked, is when you, along with the path, when you overdo it, I think that's when you get hit with it.
It's a tough one. These guys are fighting like elite level fighters, so I'm hard to do that. Like RDR could be the champion within 2 fights, so I think we need to see like another Bo Nickel fight to get a more clear understanding of that, right? If he goes out there, gets a lesser opponent and loses badly again, then maybe you revisit that. I'm just looking through like the biggest upsets of 2025 so far. Like Peyton Talbot versus Heoni Barcelos, like that's another one too. Heoni's a very good fighter, but like Peyton Talbot was what, like minus 1,000 for that fight, saying like
minus 1,600.
Yeah, like I'll be champion within 2 years, and then obviously a huge setback in this comeback fight was like, he won, but it's kind of a ho-hum decision. So I don't know. It's hard to say with these guys earlier in their careers, right? Like you need more evidence, I think, before you're 100% sure.
All right.
Someone said in the chat, patchy mix.
Nah.
Mario Bautista could be the champion in 2 fights. Like if he beats Umar, he could be fighting for the belt next. It's a tough one. I can't really take it when your loss is to a guy who's in the top 10.
There's got to be a word for fraud checked for 1 fight, but not your whole career. That sounds pretty cruel. Patchy Mix won a Bellator Grand Prix. He beat a lot of ranked opponents. He had an excellent record coming in. He just had a poor fight. But I see a Korean zombie in there scolding us. I think, I don't know. I can't make out what that person's saying. But hey, keep bringing it in the chat if you have an example. We're just having fun here. We don't think of these athletes as frauds. In any way, some people just go on a bad run or get hyped up a little too early. Hey, how about David Martinez? He's no fraud. Holy cow. He fought Rob Font and looked really crisp in doing so. I know he comes from the kickboxing world, but wow, he was delivering techniques. Goes, you were pretty impressed, right, with this cat? I mean, we're Rob Font marks over here. I mean, we kind of admit it, but he got beat up.
Well, I mean, the UFC's kind of tried this over and over with Rob Font, right? Bringing in the younger fighter, and it hasn't really worked out for them. But this kid looked amazing. This is a really good win over Rob Font. The question for me is, what do you do now? Like because of the circumstances of the fight and how he took it, he just beat Rob Font. Do you move up to that level, or does he take a step back and keep trying to do this at a little bit of a slower pace? That's going to be on him, but he's definitely got the tools to be here for a while and be somebody that sells tickets.
Well, we asked him on fight week, are you wrestling, jiu-jitsu? What's that? He says, I'm doing it all, man, because that's where a kickboxer can get fraud checked. A wrestler can get fraud checked by not having any hands. You can't get someone down. All of a sudden, you're getting pieced up. But hey, congrats to David Martinez. He looked good. Rob Font, man, how about him? Is 38 years old? Are we going to watch the decline now at this point? Because you're right, Goes. He did check Matsumoto, Jean Matsumoto. He did check another young cat too before him. I can't remember, not Adrian Yanez, but there was another one as well.
Kyler Phillips.
Kyler Phillips, yeah.
Look, it's difficult. Depends what you want. In this division, no matter who you are, it's a long road up. And with him, his age, the way UFC has treated him, probably aspirations of fighting for a title are gone. But he can probably still put together some fights, make good money. He's still a guy you want to see out there. I think he had the best jab of the whole weekend, considering boxing was still going. So there's still things to like about him. But yeah, fighting the upper echelon, that might be gone now.
Mike, how about this whole Kevin Gastelum mess? He misses weight, gives up 35% of his show, but he still won, and the fight was pretty good. But now what do you do with this guy? We're not going to send him the light heavyweight. That's another 20 pounds. He just has to get his act together. I know he apologized and all, but what we saw with Brian Battle a few weekends ago, what do you think? I think Gastelum has a little more juice in the company. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, yeah, he apologized. He did all that. How many times have we seen that in the UFC career? He just has to get his act together, George. I mean, we've been saying this for 10 years at this point. Like, at what point do you just be like, this is the act that we're getting and nothing is going to change? I mean, you see him out there like partying after the fact too. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's any remorse or like upsetness. I get it. He said it was a call on 4 weeks notice. Then don't take the fight or pitch a catch weight or something. Like, this is, I have to do the official research, but I think this was his 4th weight miss in the UFC, which I believe would tie him with John Lineker for the most of any fighter ever.
I
It's
remember
like,
that guy.
it's a disaster, bro. Eventually, I know he's got all the goodwill. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner. He's been here for a long time. Gave us one of the greatest fights in UFC history with Israel Adesanya. He is a Hall of Famer, guys, but come on, like the leash has to end at some point. I feel like every interview he's done in the past few years, whether it's been with myself or you guys again, being like, well, like if I don't win, I could be cut. Like this could be the end. We've been walking on the teeter-totter with Kelvin Gastelum for a long time here. So I don't know how many fights he has left on his contract. I imagine if it's 1 or 2, UFC will honor them. I don't think they're going to cut him after this because they probably would have done it already or right after the weight miss. So yeah, I think Kelvin Gastelum's UFC career is just running on fumes and whatever's left of it is, but like any talk of him fighting elite guys or beating elite guys, I think it's just over. And I'm not trying to be harsh here. I really like Kelvin Gastelum. He's been nothing but nice, but like this was, go look at his list of competition for the past like 6 years. This was by far on paper the most winnable fight against the least decorated or established opponent, and he barely skated by after missing weight by 5 pounds. This should have been the one where you come in looking amazing, get the knockout in the first round, and then we're talking about you in a completely different way. He blew it in every way possible except for getting the win. If he had lost the fight, even worse conversation around him right now.
I love that quote. This is the act. All right. I don't think the guys need to chime in on this one. Give me another highlight, Danny, from the UFC Noche card in San Antonio.
I'm going to shout out Montserrat Rondon, who picked up a win over Alice Pereira, and she was 17 years older than Pereira, and we knew what the UFC were trying to do here, right? Like bring in the prospect, the young prospect, and set him up against the older aging fighter on its way out. And she was supposed to win this fight and make a big splash in her UFC debut win. I'm talking about Pereira. But Rondon had different plans. And I don't know, Mexican independence, like you just felt like the moment was really meant for her, like a lot, and was big. And she delivered, man. It was a nice upset. And I always enjoy watching an underdog come up top. So, yeah, solid performance by Rondon. Shout out to her.
Mexicans went 5-0 that night, by the way. 6-0 if you want to throw Lopes in there because he's getting his Mexican on right now. And sorry if I look like Green Jello, shaking, giggling. It's Mike's comment was hilarious. Man, he's got to get his act together. That is the act, George. That's so true. That is the act. All right, goes another highlight, please.
Alexander Hernandez. Look, this is not an easy division to hold a streak in, and he's got 4 now. 2 finishes are pretty brutal. And he's got a nasty streak in him that I don't think he used to have. So I'm excited to see what he can do with this.
0 bonuses too in those 2 fights in 2 months. Poor fella. Mike Bond, a highlight from you.
I don't know if it was a highlight per se, but I guess in terms of the most important results from this card, Tatiana Suarez rebounding from her title fight loss to Zhang Weili, beating a very game Amanda Lemos, who did her best to try to stop that wrestling, but eventually it becomes too much. I don't even know what to make of strawweight right now. Is Zhang Weili going to come back down regardless of result against Valentina Shevchenko? Who's going to be the champion? You're looking at 2 very different things, looking at Mackenzie Dern as a champion and trying to promote her, and Verna Jandiroba as the champion and trying to promote her. Those would be 2 very polarizing tasks for the UFC. But in terms of what comes after that, you'd think Tatiana has a great chance of beating whoever wins that title fight. It's clear the UFC's wanted a belt on her for a long time now. So I guess this is a great outcome for her and the future of the division, especially if Weili takes away. But once you look beyond that, it's pretty grim, man. Like Suarez is, the most interesting contender, I'd say, and then it's a huge drop off. So
I can only think of the Panda, right? The Panda is the only other fighter out there that has, I guess, some credibility, some ranking. Yeah.
So. Yeah, she did what she needed to do, but the fact this fight was, on the prelims, all that type of stuff, it doesn't make me feel like the UFC is going out of its way to make women's strawweight great again. So we'll see what happens. She needed this, and yeah, probably the second most important fight result of the card rankings wise outside the main event.
All right, so let's do a couple quick questions here to close out the show. Mike, do you agree with Dean Thomas? I think he said it on the bonfire. The women's MMA just ain't popping anymore. is this almost an example? We're kind of struggling here to make something out of strawweight, which used to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's the same deal at bantamweight. Women's flyweight is probably the best women's division right now with the most stuff going on. But yeah, it has felt like that for a little while now. You'd hope maybe this is the change if we can get, Wally and Shevchenko and Nunes and Harrison. Those are all huge fights for women's MMA. But what is it building to after that besides rematches? Like, I don't know. It's felt very slow in the past few years. I mean, every fight on the betting odds, if it's an over 2.5 is like minus money. Like, this is not good stuff. So I don't know what you do to change it. I mean, I trust Dean Thomas far more. He's in there literally training with Amanda Nunes, training with Jillian Robertson, like some of the elite in women's MMA. Those are two of the more prominent finishers we've seen on that front. So like, clearly he's trying to push them in a certain style of fighting, but outside of that, it's just I don't know, man. I don't really know how to sum it up, but I feel like in our gut, we all kind of feel the same way as what Dean expressed there.
I'll go to the chat for this one. Goes a chance to defend yourself. D. Rich says, what are you talking about? Both guys could have done more. Bud styled on him.
I wouldn't say he styled on him, but here's the thing. Bud Crawford, obviously his opponent is Canelo Alvarez, but he's also fighting a word that was brought up a lot during the weekend. It was legacy, right? He's got an O at the end of his record, so he's going to be compared to guys like Floyd Mayweather, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali. I felt like he had the opportunity to do more and put more of a stamp on that performance, which is going to help him later on in those conversations. I think he took Canelo's best punch, and he was able to get through it. So I think he could have done a little bit more.
Okay. Danny, Kayla Harrison's saying, I'm going to fight Amanda Nunes first, and then I'm going to fight on the White House card, teasing us that she wants to do it, and there's a possible opponent out there. Do you like the way that's headed, or should Amanda be that opponent, even though we'd have to wait a ton, another half year for it? But if not, who's the opponent? Who do you think would be a nice person to get in there against Kayla? The only American champion, by the way.
Well, looking at the division right now, again, not so great. We'll see. I think we need to see some results, but maybe did Raquel recently win?
She was going to fight on Noche.
But Raquel fought and won after losing her belt.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Norma Dumont is fighting someone in an important fight coming up.
Norma Dumont is somebody that's got momentum. You guys might laugh, but she's ranked number 7. Aileen Perez, she's on a nice win streak. I believe is like 5 in a row or something. If she were able to get a nice solid win over a former champion, then
Raquel has not fought since the belt title. She was scheduled to fight someone, but it fell apart.
Yeah. All right. Well, one of these ladies got to step up between now and then. They got time. So I say make some big fights and, put some key bouts in whatever card that it is that you're going to build Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison, and pick the one that kind of highlights the most and build it from there. But yeah, I do want to see Kayla Harrison compete before the White House event. I think it's too much time to wait for her return, especially with Amanda Nunes, and you never know with like injuries and training and stuff. Like, if you can make that fight now, make it now. Don't wait, because tomorrow's never promised.
Yeah, just do it back to back too, right? Why we just get the Amanda Nunes fight both times, like regardless of what happens, you either get a rematch, or if Nunes loses, she can say, I haven't fought in 2.5 years. I wasn't my full self. I'll be better for the second fight.
Yep.
Okay. Ricky Hatton passed away. Goes, any thoughts on him? You saw him fight a lot of boxing matches. He only really lost to the best.
Yeah. And, we were talking about stadium shows and what it would take. Those are the type of fighters. If I've been to a lot of Ricky Hatton fights actually live, and the contingent that would follow him, the fans cheering, he did something really special in boxing. He was a really good guy if you ever talk to him independently. Fighting wise, yeah, he only lost to the best. Rest in peace, Ricky Hatton.
Mike, Joe Rogan put an asterisk on Khabib Nurmagomedov's undefeated record. If you go to MMA decisions and if you speak to people, Gleason Tibau had a nice showing, out of all the opponents that Khabib did fight. But what were your thoughts on that? Asterisk seemed a little strong.
I don't know, just Joe Rogan talking shit. Honestly, like what does it matter? Pretty much every fighter has an asterisk somewhere. Like, who are we comparing this to? Are we comparing this to John Jones's record? I think that's what he was kind of saying, right? Like, John Jones is his GOAT, and he was kind of saying this about Khabib to downplay his record. I mean, John Jones does have a loss on his record via his own illegal strikes, and then he has the first Alexander Gustafsson fight, the Thiago Santos fight, the Dominic Reyes fight, that you could all find a case somewhere that he lost. Does that mean he has 3 times the asterisk on his resume that Khabib did, let alone all the other stuff there? So, I mean, come on. If you want to dig deeper hard enough, I've said this so many times on the show, we could take anyone's career in MMA and make it look bad. Anyone.
Yeah, I thought it was a reach with the whole asterisk. The guy got his hand raised to treat it like, oh, there's a loss there. No. All right, we're gonna get on out of here. I had a few more here, but thanks everyone for throwing some stuff in there. I don't think it was too soon, Joseph Boza, for John Silva. Like I said, dude was doing really, really good before he got closed out. But thank you all for always tuning in. Please share this on your social media. It would help us out a lot. Please hit the like button on the way out. Hell, I even heard a couple YouTube people say, hit dislike if you didn't like it. I don't know if that even helps the algorithm, so I'll try that.
No, don't do that.
Share it in some way. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. We got a lot of content. In fact, right now, as we go off, the Dana White Contender Series weigh-ins have begun or about to begin. But we'll see you all next week here on Spinning Back Clique.